You are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to I Am Refocused Radio. We are here once again, and today, man, we have a special guest. We're going to talk to former Obama speechwriter Cody Keenan. He's the author of this amazing new book, Grace, President Obama in 10 Days in the Battle for America. First and foremost, it's a true honor talking to you, Cody, man. Good morning. How you doing, sir?
Shamaya, it's a privilege to talk to you. Thank you, man.
Man, this book is amazing. Gives me goosebumps because, man, I remember when I was 18 for the very first time having the opportunity to vote for President Obama. Man, this book goes in great detail of behind the scenes look. So for the audience, kind of tell us a little bit about what inspired you to write this.
Sure. I had the great honor to work for President Obama for 14 years. And I just left him in the beginning of last year and decided it was time to write something. I didn't want to write a memoir, or I didn't want to write a book about all 8 years of his presidency. I wanted to write a book that was kind of about America. And I picked these 10 days in June 2015 that were bookended by, a white supremacist massacre in Charleston, South Carolina. This gunman murdered 8 parishioners in a black church and their pastor. And on the 10th day, President Obama went down there and gave a eulogy where he sang Amazing Grace. And in between, we were kind of awaiting these Supreme Court decisions on healthcare and marriage equality. And there was a very real chance the Supreme Court could have kicked tens of millions of people off their health insurance and told millions of gay Americans, you can't get married like everybody else. So we're grappling with all these issues about who matters. I always thought I stole my thesis for this book from President Obama. He knows that. In Selma, he once said that politics is a contest to determine the true meaning of America. And it felt very alive that week. Who matters? Do we actually believe what we say about everybody being created equal? Do we stand up against white supremacy? Do we stand up for, the poor and the working class and LGBTQ Americans or not? And all that stuff just kind of came to a head in those exhausting and exhilarating 10 days.
And with that point of the Amazing Grace that I think a lot of people will never forget, you wrote in the book about the moment on Marine One when President Obama made that decision. What was that moment like? And summarize a little bit what y'all talked about.
Sure. He had, I struggled with the draft of the eulogy. I couldn't always hit the mark, and I'm very open about how difficult it was to write for him in this book. And he called me into the White House the night before the eulogy around 11 o'clock, and he had just torn up the back half of the speech just completely and rewrote it himself. And we went over it together for about a half hour. He'd added the lyrics to Amazing Grace. And in retrospect, I should have known what was coming. But I'm not from the AME church tradition, whereas he was intimately familiar with it. And so he'd probably been thinking at that point that he was going to sing it. But so we're on the helicopter on Friday morning. We just left the White House where he spoke after the Supreme Court found the right to marriage equality. And we're heading to Andrews Air Force Base to fly to Charleston. And just as he's about to get off Marine One, he buttons his jacket and hands me back the latest version of the speech. He'd been making more edits on the helicopter. He said, if it feels right, I might sing it. And it just hadn't occurred to me, and I looked up at him, and I think normally my first response in a different situation might've been like, you sure about that? But I said, our hearts were full that morning. And I just said, you do you, man. So only a few of us knew it was coming. And if you watch the YouTube, and you should, because it's just a great speech, you can see him pause for about 11 seconds. And I was actually worried. I knew he was going to sing, but I was worried that people watching at home would think there was like a missing page in the speech or something, and he was stuck. But he was just steadying himself to hit E flat.
Man, that's awesome. I mean, when we look back and see what he was able to accomplish, there's so many things going on. And a lot of people also remember the colorful White House at night.
Yep.
Touch on that while we had a little bit of time with you.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that. That was on the night of the 10th day. We come home from this exhausting and emotional memorial service where the president sang Amazing Grace, and we come back and the White House is slowly, because it's summer, so it didn't get dark till late. It's lighting up in all the colors of the rainbow. And there had been, a young man in the White House came up with that idea think a month or two before, because we knew the Supreme Court was looking at marriage equality. And so there was, that he had to go around and find funding for it and find vendors. But the debate was, what do we do if the Supreme Court strikes it down? Do we still light up the White House like a rainbow? And he said, and this was a young gay man, he said, yeah, it's actually even more important that we do that then, that we tell people that there's still a White House here that believes you belong, and will keep fighting for you at all times. And there's just kind of this beautiful night at the end of these long and exhausting 10 days where, there were only two times that I saw just this massive spontaneous gathering in front of the White House. The first was the night that the Navy SEALs killed bin Laden. And the second was the night marriage equality became a reality. Just thousands of people came, and they were happy and joyous and waving flags and hugging and kissing. And it was just enchanting USA. And it was just fantastic to be a part of.
Once again, we're talking to our guest today, Cody Keenan, the author of Grace, President Obama in 10 Days in the Battle for America. In a few minutes we have left with you, when you look back on your experience being in the White House, being able to be there, I mean, it must be an amazing experience. What was it like working with people in the White House and also for President Obama? Was it like family, or how close did y'all really get?
It was like family. It ebbs and flows over the years, but there were so many of us who were on that first campaign, which, people look back now and think it was just kind of this magical ride, but it was long and grueling. It was the longest campaign and the longest primary campaign in history. And there were when I joined, he was losing to Hillary Clinton in Iowa by 40 points, and the whole thing was a grind, but it forges you into this family. And that was true in the White House too. Lots of us, myself included, we met our future spouses there. I met my wife on her first day of work at the White House in 2011. And, I joke with President Obama that he's got all these kids now who met working for him. And now he's got dozens of grandbabies because we've all started having kids. And, two staffers got married 2 weeks ago out in California, and the president came, which just shows you what kind of guy he is. So it was always collegial, and a great atmosphere. We argued about policy at times. We argued about what goes into speeches at times, but it was always a place of real love and affection for each other.
Once again, true honor talking to our guest today, Cody Keenan, the author of Grace, President Obama in 10 Days in the Battle for America. I just want to say, man, once again, thank you for taking time in your busy schedule talking to us today. It's a true honor having you on the show.
Shemaiah, it's been my privilege. Thank you.